Hi, this is Mr. Hood, and we're going to look at evaluating expressions with negative bases and positive exponents. So let's take a look at example A. In example A, we're going to take -4 to the second power. And as you can see, the negative sign is located inside of parentheses. What that means is that when we go to expand and multiply this exponent term, we're going to carry the negative with the 4. Sometimes I like to think of those parentheses as two strong arms holding the negative next to the 4 when we go to expand and multiply. And of course, -4 times -4 is positive 16. Let's take a look at example B. In example B, what we're going to do is find the opposite of 4 to the second power. Notice I did not say we're going to find -4 to the second power, because in fact we're not. In this case, there are no parentheses holding the negative next to the 4. So in essence, what we're going to do is temporarily ignore that negative sign and just drop it down. And go ahead and expand the 4 and multiply. So of course, 4 times 4 is 16, but now we're going to drop that negative sign in front of the 16. And the final evaluation here is -16. Again, as a reminder, if the negative sign is not being held next to the number with parentheses, we're going to ignore it temporarily, expand and multiply, and then go ahead and pop that negative on at the end. Now at this point, it's probably a good idea to pause the video, and why don't you try your hand at evaluating the expressions from letter C through letter N, and then we'll pick back up and briefly go through each one. Okay, you back? All right, let's take a look at C. In the case of C, we've noticed that there are no parentheses holding the negative next to the 3. So we're going to ignore the negative temporarily. We're going to do the expansion and multiplication, 3 times 3 times 3, and the answer we're going to get is -27. Now in letter D, the negative sign is being held next to the 3 with parentheses, so when we do go to expand and multiply, we're going to hold that negative sign with the 3. But as it turns out, -3 times -3 times -3 is also -27. Now, just as an aside, notice that C through H, all of the exponents are odd, and you're going to start to notice a pattern if you haven't already. Letter E, negative is outside, so we're going to ignore it. We're going to do the multiplication and then pop the negative on at the end, so the final answer would be -32. But in F, because it's inside the parentheses, we're going to carry it along, but also get an answer of -32. Letter G, we're going to ignore the negative, expand and multiply, then pop that negative on at the end for -1. But in letter H, taking -7 to the first power is just as simple as saying, what is -7 one time? Well, it's just -7. Now, notice that with all those odd exponent examples, when the base was negative, it pretty much guaranteed that the final answer was negative as well. However, when we look at some even exponents like letter I, it could be a little bit different. So for letter I, the negative is outside. We're going to ignore it. We're going to do the math and then pop it on at the end. So the final answer there is -9. But in J, the negative is being held next to the 3. So when we expand and multiply, we're going to hold it next to the 3. And -3 times -3 is +9. Letter K, negative outside, ignore it, do the math, pop it on at the end, final answer -16. But letter L, inside parentheses, hold it with the 2 through the expansion and multiplication, and the final answer in that case is +16. Again, when you take a negative base to a positive exponent, you're going to get a positive answer. Letter M, outside, expand and multiply, pop it on at the end. And letter N, inside, hold it with the 7, final answer, +49. So briefly in conclusion, if you are evaluating an expression with a negative base and a positive exponent, and that negative sign is inside the parentheses, when you go to expand and multiply, hold that negative with the number and multiply like normal. If there are not parentheses holding that negative sign next to the number, then ignore that negative sign, expand and multiply the rest, and then pop that negative sign on at the end.